right, welcome to it, everyone. My name is Brad Brown. I've got the Comrades coach, Lindsey Parry, with me once again. If you have just joined us, we have had one or two little internet issues, unfortunately. So I, unfortunately, have had to switch the feed once again. So if you are joining us, if I could please just ask you to share this link into the various Facebook groups that we have got on. And if you can hear us, please do let us know in the comments. It would be massively appreciated. And I've got the Comrades coach with us, Lindsey Parry. Lindsey, technical issues once again, unfortunately, but how are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. So I'm not sure how much they heard of the last bit, but yeah, very excited with only 4 weeks left to go. Lots of butterflies, and the race has really become quite real. So exciting times ahead for the next few weeks.
All right, cool. I see we have got a few people joining us. If you can hear us, please do give us a bit of a thumbs up. We'd love to know and make sure that you can hear us. If you can, that would be massively appreciated. If you wouldn't mind also just popping the link into whichever Facebook group you are in on Facebook. If you are in the Comrades groups, please do pop it. Unfortunately, just so you do have some background, I moved home in the last month and have gone from 100 megabyte fiber down to next to nothing. So I feel like I've moved to the dark ages, and hopefully we can get that sorted out. But we are dealing with one of the parastatals, unfortunately, and that's what we have to deal with. I see lots of people are joining us on this one. Just once again, if you have just joined us, apologies for the delay and the change in link. We have had one or two technical issues because of internet speeds from my side. So, unfortunately, we're not going to have, we could possibly try it with regards to us on camera, but I don't want to risk it in case we lose it again. So, I'm not going to do that. If you wouldn't mind sharing this in various Facebook groups, it would be hugely appreciated. I see Gavin Taylor's joining us. Jim in Edinburgh in Scotland. How's it, Jim? Let us know where you're joining us from. Please pop it into the comments below. I see there are tons of people on. Good. So we seem to have everyone, once again, if you have just popped on, apologies for the delay. And coming up on tonight's webinar, what we are going to run through is where you should be right now. 4 weeks out from Comrades Race Day. We're going to talk about what you need to focus on for the next 4 weeks between now and race day. We're going to be talking about lists. This is one of my favorite topics. We're going to be talking about injury management as well as mental preparation. And as always, full Q&A, okay? So keep your questions, pop them in the comments, and we will get to them as soon as we can. Kerry Collins joining us in Kent. How's it, Kerry? We've also got Nathaniel. Hi, Nathaniel. Bloemfontein. Taboho, welcome. Yaku Swat, so many people. Good to see you. Henko Kronia as well in Centurion. All right, Lindsey, let's get into tonight's program. And I think what we're going to do is, like we did last time, is go through it and get through what we want to go through, because I think the content that we want to cover will pretty much answer a lot of questions, and then we can open the floor to questions, if that's cool with you. Are you happy with that?
Yeah, I'm happy. You're the boss.
All right, Lindsey, before we got so rudely interrupted by the Book of Face on the last feed, I was asking you, and we are going to talk about this at length tonight with regards to mental preparation for Comrades, but how do you calm the nerves 4 weeks out? Because they are starting now. I've seen it in the various Facebook groups. Just how nervous people are getting with Comrades just around the corner now, and it's starting to get real. What advice would you give to people sort of dealing with those sort of issues right now?
Look, the most important advice that I'll give is to stop comparing notes. So I've also seen a heap of people asking, have I done enough type of questions, and the reality is that you can't do anything about it. We're 4 weeks out. Sure, you can still do a reasonable amount of training, but you're not going to be able to really make up tons of training in this last little bit. So don't compare notes. If you find out that people are doing much more than you, it's only going to make you fearful, and it's going to harm your confidence. And yes, we will talk more about mental preparation later on, but it's really just important to be comfortable in the process that you followed. It's helped you to qualify. It's gotten you through a couple of ultras already up to this point. So have faith and stop worrying about what other people have done. I think that's the best way to keep the nerves in check. I mean, you're not gonna get rid of them, but at least control them.
Yeah, and Lindsey, I think you talk about don't compare notes. I'm going to use an example from when I was at varsity and at school, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, is in the build-up to an exam, the day before or the morning before, you chat to somebody saying, hey, how much did you study? And all of a sudden they start talking about what they've done, and you start stressing, and then you start trying to cram for this exam. And we know how well that works at school and varsity. It doesn't work. So that's the last thing you want to do now in the last 4 weeks in the build-up to Comrades is chat to people online or chat to people in your running club. And somebody may have done 200 kilometers more than you since January, or they've done 2 more marathons or extra ultras, and you start doubting your training to try and cram things in now 4 weeks out. Now's not the time to be trying to do that sort of stuff.
No, absolutely. I mean, that's what I mean. Like, don't worry about what other people do and stick to your processes.
All right, cool stuff. Let's talk about where you should be right now, Lindsey. You've mentioned 3 things, and this is obviously best case scenario.
Yeah, so where we are now is that we are the fittest we've probably ever been. We're the strongest we've probably ever been, and we're healthy. I mean, those are the 3 things that we're aiming to be. And if you're a little bit out on one of those, then you have time to do something about it. So fitness, we're not going to want. We really have to make peace with the fact that what we have done is done. You should be feeling pretty strong. If you're feeling terrible, horribly overtrained, weak, too tired to get out of bed, you've got 4 weeks to freshen yourself up. And so a couple of days off now to make you feel better, that's not going to interfere with your program. And it's amazing to me how many times I have to remind athletes that 1 or 2 training runs do not a program make. So if you are feeling a bit horrid right now, then possibly missing 2 days now and feeling a bit fresher and then getting in maybe another 10 days of reasonable training is the way to go. If you are sick or if you are injured, then a couple of days off now is really important, and we're gonna go into much more detail about that specific aspect of it later on. But if you're in your ideal case, the bulk of the field should really be very fit now, strong, a little bit tired, but not exhausted, and you don't want to be sick.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's probably the best advice you can give, Lindsey. Keep those questions through. There are quite a few coming through, which is fantastic. Let's talk about how we should focus on the next 4 weeks. Before you get into this, Lindsey, I just want to make sure, can you guys see the slides on the screen? Obviously, there's been a couple of slide changes because we've turned our video on. I want to make sure that you are seeing the slides, but you're not seeing my desktop on my Mac, if that's cool. Give us a yes or no in the comments. I want to make sure that you can see the slides. The next one should say the next 4 weeks. Is that what you are seeing? Haha, Gavin Taylor, you are a legend. Thank you very much. Nathaniel as well. All right, Lindsey, let's talk about the next 4 weeks. What should people be focusing on from now until Comrades race day?
So, look, essentially the last 4 weeks, everybody calls them taper time, and they're very right. I mean, we're not training at quite the same level as we were before, but it's important that taper is quite gradual. And in this period, in particular the next 2 weeks, you can actually still improve your fitness a little bit. I know that sounds a little bit contradictory to what I was saying before, in that you can't catch up, but that's not when I say you can get a little bit fitter, I'm not suggesting that you catch up. I'm suggesting that you stick to what you're doing now and a little bit less, particularly on the long runs. So on the weekend, this very weekend that's coming up now, which will mark 3 weeks to race day, you probably still do your stock standard long run. So if you've been running kind of week in, week out, you've been doing 25 to 30 Ks and then the occasional a bit longer than that, then you can probably still do a fairly normal weekend this week and a 25 to 30 on the weekend. If you've been training for silver medal and you've been doing quite a few 35s, you can probably push that run out to 35. The following week, which will then take you to 3 weeks out, you will then do a fairly normal week. And on that weekend, I would say you probably want to cut your kilometers down. So if you've been running 25 Ks regularly, you'll do about a 20. If you've been doing 20 Ks regularly, you probably end up doing around a 15 to 17. Then with 2 weeks out, you will just take the previous week that you did and 75% of it. So your midweek run,
All right, Lindsey, we seem to have lost you. Are you there? Apparently midweek runs aren't the way to go. So, Lindsey, I hope you can hear me. If not...
and then you'll...
Right, there we go, you're back. Sorry, you were talking about your midweek runs. Lindsey, you were breaking up as you were talking about.
Okay, so what I was saying is was that before or after... was I talking about 3 weeks or 2 weeks?
The start of 3 weeks, just to be on the safe side.
Okay, so at 3 weeks out, your midweek will be exactly the same, and your weekend will come down by like 5 to 7 Ks, depending on exactly how long that was, but it'll still be a reasonable long run, but it'll be quite a bit shorter. And then you'll go to 2 weeks out, and you'll just cut everything by 25%. So you'll do 75% of what you did the previous week. And at that point, you will actually start to feel like you freshened up a little bit. You may feel a tad sluggish, but your legs should start to be feeling quite good by the end of that week. And in that last week, you will then do 50% of what you did the previous week. And that will get you into race day feeling really nice and tapered and feeling good.
Lindsey, let me ask this question. And it's got to do with the cramming in before race day or not doing enough in the 4 weeks. If someone had to choose now in the next 4 weeks of overdoing it or underdoing it, should they err on the side of caution or should they err on the other side?
To err is human, and we should always err on the side of caution. So look, if in doubt, so particularly in this period, and that's I think what I was getting at on the previous slide, is that during this period in time, if you're going to make a mistake, you want to make it on the light side. So if you are feeling really tired, you probably want to do a bit less. If you're in doubt, leave it out. Of course, with it being cold, rainy, you could find yourself leaving it out every day, which is also not ideal. If you have the odd, Joburg and Pretoria woke up to very cold and wet. So if you skip today, but are back at it tomorrow, no problem at all. But you certainly don't want to be chasing it the other way and going, okay, Lindsey said I could still get fitter in these next 2 weeks. I'm still gonna up things a little bit. You definitely don't want to be upping things at this point in time.
Absolutely, and as you say, to err is human and to err is pirate, but that's another story. Lindsey, just a quick one on rest, and I said to you I was going to share a funny story on tonight's webinar. So I had a night from hell last night, and I want to share this with you because it's quite funny. My wife had a sixth sense moment last night. She woke me up at midnight. I needed to be up at 4:30 to go to work. She woke me up at midnight convinced that our daughter was in the room, and she made me turn the lights on. I checked everywhere, there was no one. So she was seeing dead people at midnight, just haven't had much sleep. So now also in the next 4 weeks is important to sleep well, stay healthy, and make sure that you get to Comrades feeling fit and strong.
Yeah, so that's always sometimes a double-edged sword. Absolutely. You want to actually try and get as much good quality sleep as you can over the next 4 weeks. But if you walk around all day long stressing about sleeping, it does make it a little bit harder to sleep and to fall asleep. So, yes, absolutely. Get as much sleep as you can. Still a couple of good days of training left, but we are really... by Wednesday, Thursday this week, we are getting into the single digits of training days where you can still perhaps increase your fitness ever so slightly, but that really shouldn't be the emphasis at all.
Absolutely. All right, Lindsey, let's go on to the next slide if we can with regards to making lists. And I thought my wife had slipped this one in because she is a fan of making lists of lists. But lists this time of the year for Comrades is pretty important because we all get goldfish syndrome.
Yeah, so as you get more nervous and the closer you get to race day, the more forgetful you're going to get, and that's a totally normal symptom of stress. I mean, most people get quite forgetful. They often can remember quite important details about a specific thing that is stressing them out, but a lot of other things go out the window. So we discussed making lists when we spoke about the long run last month on the webinar. And this is really just a reminder that with 4 weeks out, most people have done their long run in the past 14 days. And so therefore the long run should still be quite fresh in your mind. So you know how often you took a gel or gum shots or jellies or whatever it is that you use. You kind of know exactly how much of that stuff you need, how you've probably still got the remnants of a blister here or there that you can just make a quick note so that you can wrap a bit of plaster and some Vaseline around that on race day. You may or may not be quite sunburnt, so then remember to put in suntan lotion, cap, obviously your running kit, safety pins or whatever you use to pin numbers onto your running vest. But just take a moment to take your time to write down absolutely everything that you need to go with you to Durban, and that you will be using on race day, so that when you pack, you don't overlook anything and you remember absolutely everything when you go down. Any little mistakes that you made. So in your training run, I was chatting to someone today that went too fast not wildly too fast, but perhaps a little bit too fast at the beginning, and then found themselves quite tired towards the end. So any little mistakes that you did make on that training run, anything that you used perhaps that made you nauseous and that you feel like you can blame on getting that nausea or suspect that it caused nausea. So any things you did wrong, put those on the list too, so that you can think about those the night before the race and make sure that you don't do those again. And then importantly, if you tried a run walk strategy, for example, and that worked really well for you, then write that down too, so that the night before when we start talking about the mental preparation, you can actually start using those things in your thoughts and start planning it and seeing it and doing it. So those lists can be really important. And again, I didn't want to jump too far ahead in the talk when you asked what can we do to alleviate stress, and making sure that you've got all your bases covered, looking at your list, focusing on doing one or two things right or fixing one or two mistakes. Those are things that can help you to settle down and be a bit calmer for race day.
Yeah, Lindsey, some good advice coming through from Lance Munro saying pack your running shoes first. And then also one from Fahima saying running shoes when flying, make sure or carry them. I'm guessing she's saying wear running shoes on flight in case the bags go missing. So there's some good advice as well with regards to that. Lindsey, you also mentioned the long run, and I mean we've spoken about it quite a bit, being a dress rehearsal to make sure that you sort of get everything right. And as much as you want to get everything right, you should, while it's still fresh in your mind, have that so that you don't make those mistakes again, and really make note of them.
Yes. No, I mean, and I think that's really the point that I'm making is, if you got sucked into running a pace that was a bit quick just because you wanted the company, then that is something to make note of. And the other side is true too. One of my clients last week, I had the discussion with him, and he ran the first 10Ks with a couple that were a lot slower than him, and he was telling them about when he did the African Creek Disables through the desert, and he said that just set him up for such a brilliant long run. And because he'd gone so slowly compared to how he normally runs, he just really felt like he warmed up better than he warmed up and had an absolutely fantastic long run. So that would be something for him to write down as a thing to remember on race day, is to really go out easy for those first 10Ks and settle into the race just like he did on that long run.
All right, cool. We're going to get to your questions shortly. I know there are lots coming through. Keep them coming. We've got some great ones coming. Gavin Taylor was asking, do you have a checklist for things to remember? Gavin, good news. And I don't think this is like the definitive, but go and check it out because it's pretty much there. Everything I think you would need is there. I put it together for myself, so it might jog a couple of things that you might have forgotten. If you go to coachparry.com/checklist, that's coachparry.com/checklist. You can get it there. It's a PDF. You can download it. Go check that out. I'll pop that link through you guys later as well if you don't want to take it down now. But it's pretty easy to remember. It's coachparry.com/checklist. All right, Lindsey, let's chat about sort of injury management because this is quite important at this stage in your Comrades training as well. If you are carrying a niggle, I mean, we say this all the time, but it's mission critical now. You've got to get that sorted.
Yeah, so I mean, I actually can't stress this point enough. So, in 2000, and it was the last down run. The previous down run, we actually had quite high non-finishers rate, which is unusual for a down run. But also the previous year's up run had been horrendous, and we had the worst race conditions ever recorded. And then the next down run was a little bit warm, but I do think that a lot of people just got a little bit of, oh boy, here we go again. But be that as it may, it was important to us to get to the bottom of it and try and figure out why people didn't finish. So we sent out a questionnaire to all 5,000 runners, or just short of 5,000 runners who didn't finish, and over 1,000 of those responded. And 68% of the people who responded who did not finish Comrades started the race with an injury. So I cannot stress enough how important it is that in the next 4 weeks, if you do have an injury, that you do everything you can to get pain-free at the start. That means that you need to get treatment. And if you've been carrying that injury and it's kind of gone from the acute phase to the chronic phase, then you really need to get it treated, and you're probably going to need some rest. Okay, so I've really tried to emphasize that on that slide there: treat, and rest. So if you are better off over, and again that speaks to your point earlier on in this talk, you are better off being a little bit undercooked, not doing enough in these last 4 weeks, than you are doing too much, especially if you're injured. You really are loading the dice in your favor by starting injury-free.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I'm just moving my chair around. There we go. Yeah, I mean, if you can, and I mean, Lindsey, we get these questions so often in the Coach Parry Facebook group, but I see it in so many groups as well, where people have a niggle and then they wait for a week or two to see if it comes right. And now you can't wait. It's 4 weeks to go. You have to get the thing treated. And as you said, treat. If you feel a niggle, go get it sorted as soon as possible. All right, Lindsey, let's talk about the mental preparation. And there's a couple of questions coming through here with regards to the added distance on the down run this year and pacing. So as far as mental preparation goes, it all plays into this.
Yeah, absolutely. So you need to wrap your mind around that you are going to be doing 90 kilometers and that it is one of the longer Comrades in history, and that really just means that you have to plan for it. So over 90 Ks, that extra K means that you probably need to be running on average about 2 or 1 point something, rounded up to 2 seconds per K quicker than you otherwise would have. The most important thing for me, if we're going to just talk about that distance, and I don't want to overemphasize this because it's one of the things I'm really going to talk about a lot when we do our race day presentation, but it really means that on race day you've got to minimize your stationary time. So you've got to plan your race, know when you're going to stop, how long you're going to stop for, and just really don't waste any time on the side of the road. And I think that's going to be the biggest difference between this Comrades and previous Comrades is that people just need much more time conscious so that they don't waste any time. But in your mental preparation, part of it is to study the route. There are a couple of great descriptions of the route around. I know if you get onto Bruce Fordyce's website, there's a thing there. Dave Jack, I forget the name of his website, but if you look for Dave Jack, he's got a great route description, and he also has to break that race down into little chunks. And again, we will also do that when we do our race day preparation. But you've got to really study it, visualize it, picture how you're going to move through each section, how you're going to be feeling through each section, and you want to be realistic about it, because you are going to get to points in the race where you're not feeling fantastic and that you are tired. But if you've prepared yourself mentally for that and you've given yourself a little bit of a game plan as to how are you going to get through those sections, you're going to look back at all the training you've done. You're going to remember the people that you perhaps are running for. You know, if you've got children waiting for you at the finish line, you want to picture their faces when they see you get your medal. All these little tricks that you pre-plan for yourself so that you can bring them out as you need them to get you through those dark patches. So really picture yourself strong and smiling. Picture yourself not feeling so good but still strong and being able to run, and keep playing the stuff in your mind over and over and over again. And then, as I said, really prepare yourself mentally for those last 20 to 30 Ks, where the only thing that matters is 1 foot in front of the other, 1 foot in front of the other, 1 foot in front of the other. And if you really get yourself into that groove and know physically we are all capable of doing this. Physically, we are all going to get to the 70 to perhaps 80K mark if we're ready, but we're all going to get to 70 physically. And then from 70 to the finish line, that's going to be all in our minds, and that's going to be where we need to have a strong motivation as to why we are doing Comrades.
Yeah, absolutely, and I love the visualization, Lindsey. I sort of on my runs, training runs, I just love switching off and imagining what it's going to be like to be on the grass and finishing, and it's just when times get tough on Comrades Race Day, and for those of you who haven't done it yet, it's not a case of if it's going to get tough. Comrades is going to be one of the hardest things you'll ever do, and you need to be able to dig into those happy places to keep you going. So start thinking about that now. It definitely does help as well. Just once again, a massive thank you to Bonitas for making these online seminars possible. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be able to do that. So thank you very much to the folks at Bonitas for making this all possible. All right, Lindsey, let's get to some questions and some great ones coming through. So, all right. So Lindsey, I know we touched on it as well, but this is a question we're going to get lots. It's from Nicole September saying, pacing for back runners, particularly batches G and H, because of the faster cutoff times, how conservative yet make it how to be conservative but yet still make the cutoffs?
Okay, so look, because there's been quite a bit of controversy, and some of it has been stirred up unnecessarily by people who should know better on Facebook. I'm actually going to break a rule quickly here. Those pacing charts that I do are effectively the property of Comrades, and we sell them for charity. But I do think it's important to show people, or not show, but to explain to people how some of those calculations work, so that I can really help to settle people down, because the 8 minutes to cross the start line, coupled with the fact that the down run is now the longest ever been, is really starting to get people worried. So I just want people to understand how I went about calculating these pacing charts. So also bearing in mind that the pacing chart for the 12-hour bus isn't necessarily for me the absolute best way to run the race, and when people come, I'll be at the stand pretty much all day every day. So when people come to the stand, I will I will also explain to them a little bit better based on their own unique goal that they should be running depending on their marathon time. But this is probably for somebody who's a 4:55 and slower marathon, then this pacing chart is not a bad way to go. So what I've done is that in the first 5 or so kilometers, you will lose about 8 minutes, okay, if you are in H-batch. And actually this year I'm hopeful that that number will be lower because the start is slightly different to previous years. We're not going to turn into a bottleneck at the bottom of the hill when we get to the river as we did in the past. We're actually going to carry on straight on Allen Patton, and I'm hoping with that road being a little bit wider, it will actually help the whole race to clear out just that little bit better. But anyway, be that as may, I've got the 8 minutes in the calculation. I've got first 5.2 Ks to be run at just over 8 minutes a K, which is slower than the average pace required to finish. But of course, you're not going to be able to start running straight away when you do cross the start line. There's still going to be quite a bit of walking. Plus, there's that 8 minutes built in right there. Okay. Then the next 10.4 Ks features some of the biggest climbing that will be done on the day for Comrades, because it takes us up to the highest point of the race. So that section I've worked out at 9.5 minutes a K. Now there are very few people that are actually going to run at 9.5 minutes a K. But if you were to run that section at 9.5 minutes per K, you would still be safe to go through the cutoff that we have set up. Okay. The next section, we do need to start making up some of that lost time. And that is a 14K section that has a little bit of climbing, but mostly it actually goes downhill. Its net overall is slightly down, and so I still haven't gone wild. I've worked it out at just over 750 per K. The following section, which does have a significant climb in it up in Chunga, but the overriding, over those 14Ks, you will have a net 81 meter loss. So in other words, there's a lot more downhill in that section than there is up. And so that section, again, I've allowed for a 750 or so. And that will take you comfortably under the 6 hours 10 that you need. The next section, I have allowed people to go much slower again because that is a tough section. Okay, although the overall section, because it's to the next cutoff point, it's 13 Ks. So the overall section means that you climb just about as much as you go down. However, it's really climbing through that section. So I don't really want anybody rushing through there. So I've allowed 8:16, and again, most people won't do that. Most people will probably they will be around the 7:45, 7:50 mark. Then the next section of the race is 11 Ks, and that will take you at a 296 meter drop. So in other words, you fall down a shaft. So as long as you've gone easy enough through the previous sections, you will then be able to go miles under the average pace required and probably running pretty close to 7 minutes a K, and I've allowed just over or just around 7:10 per K, and that will take you through that next cutoff point. And of course, you still have loads of downhill thereafter, or basically the next section, which is 12 Ks, you've got 166 meters of down, and then the final section which is 8 Ks, you've got 144 meters of down. So you really, as long as you're running, you're not going to have any issue crossing those sections, and you need to run roughly at the required pace from that point in time. So again, once people come to me and we sit down and we can chat about exactly how to run the race, I will explain to people how to adjust it for their own needs. But what will be good is that they'll have that chart with them to let them see what are the last possible times for me to sneak through all of these cutoff points.
All right, cool. I saw Danny Suskin was on the stream a little bit earlier. Danny, we're going to need you to translate this next one for our American viewers today. The question, Lindsay, is from Juanita Marie. She wants to know, is it too late for new tackies?
It's getting close, but no. I think if you get your new Scorps shoes, running shoes, in this coming week, you probably will get in just about enough Ks to run them in. Look, if you're a Bull Rowan or faster, you will definitely get enough kilometers in for those shoes to be quite comfortable and run in. Otherwise, you'll be a little bit light, but you can also cheat a bit and not only run in them. I know in my house I get frowned at if I wear running shoes for anything that's not running. But yes, you can do that. You can wear those shoes in by also just walking around in them a bit. But yeah, if you're going to get new shoes, this weekend coming will be, I think, the latest you can afford to go and get new shoes.
Okay, thank you very much to Danny Suskin for translating that for us. They're trainers in the UK, Lindsay, and running shoes in the US. There you go. Okay. So if all our international viewers were wondering what tackies were, it's what we call running shoes here in South Africa. All right, Lindsay, another question, and it always pops up. Let me see if I can find it quick. And a big welcome to Kevin Cameron, who's joining us from a pub in Johannesburg. Kevin, I hope you've got us on the big screen there, mate. Let's get everyone who's out drinking tonight to join us, comrades, if not this year, next year. Oh, where's this question gone? All right, it's from Vimal, Lindsay. Vimal wants to know, can you do the race without special gels and jellies, like those sort of energy gels?
You can, and the fact that you're asking that question now, 4 weeks out, makes me feel like I should encourage you to do so. If you haven't used gels, if you don't know how you're going to respond to them, finding out on race day is not a good idea. So look, on the day, there will be Energy, there will be Coke, there will be other, there will be like potato crisp, there will be actual boiled, small chopped up pieces of boiled potato, there will be bananas, there will be oranges. So look, you're unlikely to go hungry on the day, but again, one of my very firm and fast rules is nothing new on race day. So you've still got some medium long runs left, so you could experiment with gels, I guess, between now and race day, but the fact that you haven't used them in a race up to now means that you probably shouldn't be using them. Of course, if you are an international and you are used to racing on something particular that you're going to struggle to get your hands on in South Africa, and also for 90 Ks it's very difficult to carry everything. Now in South Africa, most of the clubs in South Africa have 2 to 3 little tents on the side of the road where you will be able to refill with gels or Super Cs or Energellies or whatever it is that you use, your kind of product that you need to get you through the race. So if you don't have a club, but much more importantly, if you are an international that will not get that kind of support, there is actually a company that you can go to that will give you that support. And they are called ConSports. So if you just go to consports.co.za, you'll be able to sign up with them. You'll be able to meet them at the expo or wherever. The information will be on the website. And it means that you will then be able to get access to the kind of products that you use. So anyway, thanks for that question, because it just reminded me of that. We're quite spoilt in South Africa. Obviously it's our home race, but we forget that it's not quite as easy for the internationals to get what they are used to getting on the side of the road.
Yeah, absolutely, Vimal. And if you have a cast iron stomach, and this goes for anyone, and you can eat anything on a run like Comrades, what Lindsay mentioned is what's at the refreshment tables, but you can pick up absolutely anything along the way. So if you stopped and ate something at every time you saw somebody offering you something to eat on the side of the road, I think you would actually put on weight at Comrades. So if you can eat, you're not going to want for anything. Lindsey, this is my favorite question. It pops up every single year. I know you can't see the screen, but yeah, by me saying it's my favorite question, you know exactly what it is. Byron wants to know, can we take pain tablets on race day?
So, look, I have spent the last decade of my life trying really hard to get people to stop taking painkillers, mostly because it really just has potential negative side effects. So, unfortunately, the pain meds that most people use are, in South Africa, a product known as Maprodol. It's an anti-inflammatory. It's quite a powerful anti-inflammatory. Look, these things are not safe to use, and they're particularly not safe to use a lot of them. So I spent years trying to educate people how dangerous it is. I then spent years trying to appeal to people's conscience and say, why do you want to take painkillers on race day and ruin what is such an unbelievably special achievement by taking the painkillers on race day? And I've learned over the years that people just don't care. I mean, they want to get to the finish line. Certainly self-preservation is not high on the list of anybody who volunteers to run 90 kilometers. So I'm not winning with that argument. So what I really do encourage people very strongly to do is two things. Number one is please, if you are going to be taking any kind of medication with you on race day, please check with a medical practitioner that what you are using and how you are planning on using it is not going to land you in a hospital or medical tent. And the second thing is, don't take a whole row. So, I don't even know what they call, the sheet. Don't take a sheet. If you take a sheet, you're going to eat the sheet. And you're going to dish them out to other people. And that's another important point. Don't give that stuff to other people. You don't know what other medication they are on. You don't know what sort of harm you're putting those people in. So only take stuff that you've discussed with a medical practitioner, and I am not he. So I'm not going to give people advice on what to take and what not to take. And then make sure that you take one. That's it. Only have one. If you have four, you are taking four. I've seen this movie too many times. And you just put yourself into very difficult and dangerous positions.
Yeah, and Lindsey, if I can put my 2 cents worth in there as well, pain is part of the process. That's why we do Comrades. If it was easy and it was a walk in the park, so to speak, everyone would have a Comrades medal. And it's overcoming those really difficult times and the pain that makes that finish so special. So, yeah, that's my take on it. And I'm not the smallest of Comrades runners. I mean, I've run this race at 130 kgs. And let me tell you, Comrades hurts a hell of a lot at 130 kgs. And I can proudly say I've never taken pain pills at Comrades. I never plan to, because that is part of the process.
Yeah. No, look, I feel exactly the same way. And like I said, after preaching it for almost 12 years now, I realize that, people will do what they do. So I strongly encourage people not to, for both the health reasons and for that kind of sense of satisfaction at the end. But if you are going to do it, make sure that you've consulted with someone with an actual medical degree. And please don't take a whole sheet.
All right, cool. Lindsey, I know you were talking about the pacing charts. A couple of people asking, where can we get those pacing charts? You mentioned that Comrades do sell them to raise money for charity. I think it's $20 a pacing chart, and they are available at your stand at the expo, if I'm correct.
Yeah, so they were, I think they had gone up to $30 last year. I can't remember. My memory is not what it once was in my youth. But yeah, they're certainly not very expensive, and all the money goes to charity, and they will be at the Comrades coaches stand. Now that's another place where we need Danny to come in and translate for us, because often people come to my stand thinking that they're at the Comrades bus stand, wanting to buy a ticket to get to the start, because apparently overseas a coach is not an athletic trainer but a bus. So
Yeah, Lindsey, you are really confusing the thing now, because a bus at Comrades is something totally different.
Yeah, so I will be at the Comrades coaching stand, and that's where you'll be able to buy those pacing charts.
All right, a couple of questions coming through about the last last short run before Comrades. Lindsey, somebody saying, when should you do your last short run in the week of Comrades? And someone else asking, is it okay to do a park run the day before Comrades?
Look, it's all right to do a park run the day before. 5K is certainly, if you're fit enough to run 90, is going to do very little to you in terms of making you tired. But you just need to be very sensible about it. You don't want to be racing 5 kilometers. It should probably be the slowest 5 kilometers of your year. So absolutely no problem. I've always been a believer in keeping the habit. So whatever kind of training you have done up until that point, I'd like to train on the same days, but I do a lot less. If again, to use, Bruce Fordyce did win the race 9 times, so it's not a bad idea. Look at what he did. And Bruce Fordyce would always take 2 days rest before race day. So he'd run every day of the week and then take 2 days off to really freshen up. So you will also have an idea of what's worked for you when you've trained for a hard 10, 15, 21. Those sort of things I would keep to a similar strategy, but just bear in mind that you want to be fresh on race day. So it's going to be small doses, short duration, and you're not going to do anything flashy and risk getting injured in that week.
Yeah, absolutely. Lindsey, Danny says, if you're leading a bus, make sure you jump on it. I think that is great advice from our Atlanta connection tonight. All right, Lindsey, question, and it's injury related, and I'm sure this will relate to anyone with injury. Junaid wants to know any advice on ITB, and I'm sure this is, like I said, applicable to all injuries at this stage in Comrades training.
Yeah, so look, ITB is one of those injuries that rest doesn't make it better, but ring irritates it a lot. So if you do have ITB, you do need to have some rest because you don't want to continue annoying it. But the most important thing is to get yourself to a healthcare practitioner that can identify the actual cause of ITB. Now, ITB, once you identify the cause, is actually one of the easiest injuries to get rid of. But there are 3 or 4 potential causes, so you really got to identify what is causing yours in particular. Now, I have found in my years in practice, when I was working as a biokineticist or a rehab specialist, is that a lot of people overlooked tight hip flexors. And, with modern living, lots of driving, sitting in traffic for a long time, sitting behind a desk, that does lead to people having quite compromised and short hip flexors, and by stretching your hip flexors, you can actually take a hell of a lot of pressure off your ITB. So if that's something you haven't tried yet, then definitely get in there, get stuck in, do some good stretching of the hip flexors. If you are if you are being treated by a physio, get them to check your hip flexors, perhaps get them to loosen those for you. The good news with ITB is that it's not a debilitating pain. I mean, it's pretty sore and uncomfortable, but on race day, with a little bit of knee strapping, you can probably grin and bear it. And the other good thing about it is it's one of those injuries that's unlikely to become something that leaves you with a permanent damage. So on race day, if it does get sore, even if it gets really uncomfortable, as long as the mind is willing, you should be able to run through.
Cool. Lindsey, question in from Matsudiso. Matsudiso says, is track sessions advised during the last 4 weeks? And then Juan on the flip side of that coin, and I was going to ask it, but he beat me to it. Juan was saying, must I keep doing my strength training in these last 4 weeks? What about speed work for the athletes, the racing snakes who are doing it? And what about strength work?
Yeah, so if you have been doing hill work, speed work, that sort of thing up until this point in time, absolutely, you will carry that on right through until the last week of the race. In the last week, it'll just be like a really short session, something like 5 times 400s, but you'll temper the speed, so you won't do the same speed as if you were, for example, preparing for a 10k race on the weekend. So they would still be quite a lot faster than you're planning on running on race day, but they won't all out 400s. Strength training, I am happy for people to carry on with strength training right up until the week before. So if you've, for example, been doing a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I would be more than happy for people to carry on and that Friday, the day before, not the day before, the week before. So in other words, about 9 days, 9 days out from race day, you would then stop.
All right, cool stuff. Let me see. Lindsey, question in from Nathaniel. Nathaniel wants to know, is a massage or a spa day good this weekend? And that is after the morning run, that is.
Yeah, absolutely. So like this far out, weeks out, whether you're used to getting massages or not, that is actually a good idea. And a spa type of massage, absolutely, because that's just a very relaxing rub. It's not even very deep. But maybe just to add on to that is if you are, a lot of people go for a massage in the last week before the race. Now, if you are not accustomed to getting massages, then I would not go for a deep tissue massage in the last week. Then I'd make sure it was a good 10 days away from race day to go and have a deep tissue massage. If you are used to having massages and you generally are quite good with them, then I'd be comfortable that you went on the Wednesday or Thursday before the race. Of course, I would have a word with the therapist, say, listen, mate, if you do find something in there, try and loosen it a bit, but don't go in too deep, not like they perhaps would just during the normal course of training.
Cool. Ina Duplessis wants to know, Lindsey, any advice on how to prevent nausea?
So I don't have great advice on how to prevent nausea. It is a bit of a growing problem, but I also, and again, I'm not suggesting that you do this at all, but it is just something to think about in case you are. And that is that for me, there has been an increase in the rate of nausea over the last 5 or 6 years. But at the same token, as hard as I've been trying to stop people from taking painkillers and anti-inflammatories, that has increased over the last 5 to 6 years. So I'm not entirely sure that it's not, or that it is coincidental. And so if you are going to use anti-inflammatories in particular, but painkillers in general, that may well be contributing to it. The other thing is that nausea is, in some people, is triggered by having lots of sweet stuff, and some people are much more sensitive to that than others. Also, if you are using gels, it's important to always take the gel with water, because if the gel just sits in your gut, in your intestine, and there's no water to help absorb it, and it just sits there, it can irritate the stomach and the intestine because it get absorbed. So if you do use things like gels and sweets, make sure that you take those with water. And if it is triggered by a lot of sweet stuff, then what I would suggest that you do is quite early in the race, when everything is working quite well and not too much blood has been diverted away from your system, I'd be quite good at making sure that I'm drinking enough Coke / Energade and getting in enough energy. And then as the day progresses, preferably before you start feeling nauseous, but you kind of have an idea of when that normally happens. So before you get to that point, to then really reduce the amount of sweet stuff that you're taking as energy, and then move more to things like bananas or potatoes, more kind of potato chips, more kind of solid things. You take in very small amounts. I'm not suggesting you eat a potato because that's not really gonna work out. But a bite or two of a potato every couple of kilometers, small bites of a banana, those type of things. One of the Comrades sponsors, in fact, is a thing called Far Bar. They make fast bars and Far Bars. Those are not nearly as sweet as your traditional energy things. So, eating something like that with a bit of water may actually help you, it may help stave off the nausea because it's not quite as sweet.
All right, cool. Lindsey, this is such a great question. It is from Awonke. Awonke's saying, any advice on how to prevent the nightmares? I had a dream. I woke up an hour after the start. Awonke, I've dreamt that I've got to the start and I've had my church shoes on. Well, I didn't even have running shoes on. How do you deal with these dreams, Lindsey? And I know, because we're talking about it tonight, everyone's going to have one this week.
So, look, Comrades' dreams are part and parcel of it. And I guess like most things in life, if you know that they are going to happen, then when you wake up from them, there's just a lot of relief. Oh, it was only a dream. And then hopefully you can go straight back to sleep. So there is not really a whole lot that you can do to get those dreams. I have some particularly strange ones. In some of my Comrades dreams, I'll be having a fantastic Comrades, but then, it's like the old school dream when you were a kid, and the most embarrassing thing that could happen to you is that you rocked up at school and your mom had forgotten to put your shorts on. Well, I have that as a reoccurring Comrades dream, that I'm having such a fantastic race, but then suddenly everyone's laughing at me and I look down and I'm footloose and fancy free and I haven't put any pants on. So you have these ridiculous Comrades nightmares as race day approaches. And funnily enough, as I've moved further and further away from training for Comrades, and that I now second quite often, I have nightmares about not being able to get to the point where I need to get to, or I get there, I've forgotten the drinks in the car, So I think whenever you're going into a bit of a stressful or I like to think exciting situation, there will be some dreams associated to that.
All right, pop your dreams. If you've had any funny ones, pop them in the comments below. We want to read them, okay? Share them with us in those comments. Question from Jim, Lindsey, and we are running out of time, so get your questions in if you want them answered. Jim Panton, who is in sunny, gorgeous, warm Scotland at the moment, he's saying, managing cold in the mornings and heat in the afternoon for the internationals late in the day at Comrades. What advice do you have, Lindsey?
Yeah, so look, I find the cold is not really an issue to manage, really. I mean, I think it's important to take note of it, and it's probably great that you brought it up, and I would have emphasized that in that final talk. But being a little bit later than usual, you can probably expect somewhere in the region 0 to 4 degrees, which that is chilly, but a cheap pair of disposable gloves that you can actually purchase at the expo itself, and an old throwaway shirt. They all in the goodie bags. There is normally the race sponsors normally do put in like almost like that surgical gown material that you can wear over. So once you actually get in and you're surrounded by all the runners, it's not too cold. The big mistake people make is that they discard their beanie, gloves, warm shirt, anything they bought at the top of poly shorts. And then as you plunge down the bottom of poly shorts, it actually gets freezing cold. And so I always tell people to keep their warm stuff on till at least the 25, 26k mark, and then to discard. So if you get warm, maybe take it off, but I would still keep it so that you can put it back on if you get cold. And then obviously as the day goes on, it will get warmer and warmer. And the only real defense against that is to keep yourself wet. So There will be a bit of cold water along the way. Spray that. Keep your cap. Maybe spray that cold water onto the cap. Put that on because we lose a lot of heat out of the forehead. Besides, from Fields Hill to the end, it does tend to be quite exposed. But up until that point, there's still quite a lot of foliage and so on that you can, through Hillcrest and Kloof, that you can kind of hide in the shadows a little bit. Suntan lotion, because you can prevent yourself from getting burnt. That will stop you from expending a lot of energy. And if you can get ice from people along the side of the road, so a bit of ice under your cap, or tuck your shirt in and dump a bit of ice down the front and back of your shirt, those are good ways of helping you to control your temperature later in the day. Of course, if you're finishing, although it's finishing in Durban and it won't get freezing cold, once you start getting to the late afternoon, it can get a little bit chilly towards the end. So that's also just something to take note of. I mean, we're not going to carry our gloves all the way to the end just in case we get a bit chilly. But again, it's important just to perhaps know that is in fact coming.
All right, cool. Lindsey, I just wanted to run through some housekeeping quick if I could. Before we go, we do have a couple more questions which I will get to in a moment. Also, just a massive thank you to Bonitas for making these online seminars possible. Don't forget, if you are looking for one-on-one coaching, maybe not for Comrades now, it is a bit too late for that. But if you are looking for beyond, make sure you check out coachparry.com/training. If you're looking for training programs, you can go to coachparry.com/programs and check out the podcast as well. Most of the questions that were asked tonight, there is a podcast. So if we didn't get to your question tonight, make sure you go to coachparry.com. In the search bar, just type in your question, and I'm pretty sure the question will pop up. All right, Lindsey, a quick question in, and this has come up a couple of times. This one from Sam. Sam says your bronze medal program still calls for a 4-hour run this weekend and 2-hour midweek runs. Is that correct?
Bronze, that sounds like way too much. Let me just quickly work something out, but that seems way too much. That I'm almost certain that is a mistake. Yeah, that's a 36k run, so it's not completely ridiculous, but it is too far. So it is a mistake. I would say you're much better off going 25 to 30. So that's probably going to be closer to it's probably going to be between 240 and more like 240 around there as a training run. Let's call it 245 to be safe. Is probably a more appropriate run on this weekend.
All right, cool. I'm just having a scan at the questions. I think we've pretty much got to everything, Lindsey. It's been another great session. We have run a couple of minutes over. Thank you once again to everybody who did join us. We hope you got something out of it. We look forward to chatting to you again. I know it's 4 weeks to race day, just under 4 weeks, but the good news is we've got another one of these in 2 weeks' time, okay? So it is happening. I'm just looking at my calendar. It is happening, Lindsey, I believe it was on the 28th of this month, Monday the 28th, and you're not going to want to miss this next one, okay? Because we are going to be talking about how you can save yourself time on race day, particularly if you are in G&H batches. And we're going to be talking about just getting you through race day itself. It's always our most popular webinar, so make sure you are here, and we look forward to spending some time with you then. If you've got any questions, coachparry.com/Facebook is where you can get them answered. Go to coachparry.com as well. Like I said, search the podcast. I'm pretty sure you'll be able to find the answers to your questions there. We've answered lots over the years, hundreds and hundreds of questions. So make sure that you go and check that out, okay? Lindsey, parting shot from you this evening?
Yeah, just to reiterate, the thing you asked me about is that it is better to do a little bit less than to do too much. And to remind everybody that 68% of the people who do not finish Comrades started with an injury. So if you've got an injury, please get that sorted out and that'll greatly improve your chances of finishing.
Yeah, Lindsey, I think that's such an important point, and people miss that. That number, again, is 68% of people who start with an injury or who don't finish is because of injury. So if you do have a niggle, now is the time to sort it out. You are mission critical. As I said earlier on in the podcast, get it sorted now, ASAP. Lindsey, Parry, as always, great catch up. Thanks for your time tonight. We look forward to catching up with you in the forums.
Yeah, I will be there. And guys, I'm getting excited to see all the guys and ladies that have trained so hard for so many months and interacted with us. So I will remind you at the next one, but please come and say hi in Durban. I really look forward to meeting everybody.
Absolutely. 28th of May, 8 o'clock South African time is when we will see you, but I'll pop you those details on email. We'll catch up then. Until the next time, from the two of us, it's cheers.